There you go.
Oh, wow. What year was that? Let me put my glass.
91.
Yeah, February 91.
91. I do not remember covering that at all. Even a little bit.
You've been at this for what? I think you
34
said
years.
34 years. Okay. You always give me shit on, say I'm supposed to be the smart one on the show.
Well, that's
And
because I was smart when I was young, and they, for some reason, something they would never do today, and I skipped second grade, and I was already the youngest person in my class anyway. It was
Wow.
very bad. Bad. It was not a good thing.
it was,
It's
Wow.
a good thing, but it was not a good thing at all.
so I brought you on today because, well, first of all, I find you kind of just friendly and irreverent, and you just your style of communication, especially with Gabe on your show, like you guys were going at it last week. Was it last week? Yeah, about something, and it was like everybody in the chat box was looking, going, they're fighting, and it's cool because you just get up and you say what you want. How did you get this show? You're several seasons in at this point, aren't you?
And this is our fourth season.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quickly, I did a show in the first show I ever did was back in 2015. The Times Picayune that was owned by the former owners,
Right.
they decided in 2015 that they were going to fire half the sports staff one day.
Wow.
Okay.
So, and at the time I was covering high schools, and I got a phone call from my boss and said, I got good news and bad news. I said, okay. The good news is you still have a job because there have been rumors going around.
Right.
The bad
Mhm.
news is there are a lot of your cohorts are gonna and colleagues are not gonna be around after today. I'm like, okay, well that's bad news. And then come to find out, I kept getting text messages. About 3 hours later, realized the entire prep staff, except for me, had been fired. Okay,
Damn.
so they bring me in the next day, and we have a meeting about this, and they say, we also have some more kind of bad news for you. You're not only are you going to be the only person in prep running the entire New Orleans high school sports
Wow.
operation by yourself, you're also going to host a daily show about the Saints. I had never hosted a show in my life. It was called Black and Gold Today, and you can still find some of them on. If you go search, you can still find some of them on YouTube. So I hosted that show for about a year. It was a really bad Saints season. It was the year that Rob Ryan got fired in the middle of the year, and
Uh,
the Saints defense was historically bad, and they went 7-9, and it was pretty bad. But so that gave me experience doing shows, and then when they hired me, long fast forward to 2019, they hired me back. I'd been let go again, and they brought me back. Um, and I've been doing play by play for several years now, almost about a decade. And I decided in 21 that I wanted to do my own show. So I asked, like, I didn't even like think that they were going to use it on NOLA. I'm like, just is it okay if I do a show on the side? And they said,
yes.
sure.
Mhm.
So, well, they ended up letting me use their platform to put it on their platform. And so in 2021, I did the first Datitude podcast. It was audio only for quite a while. And Stan Verrett was my first guest of ESPN. And I knew him through some other friends, some mutual friends, and he was very gracious to come on and give me 45 minutes or so. And so the first 2 years or so, or first year and a half at least, it was
Yeah.
audio only. So you have to go find any old shows, like if it's got double digits, that's pretty much back before we were video. And then Jeff
Hmm.
Duncan came on, and we would do Friday shows, just he and I. Our Friday show only would be live. But yeah, I mean, I say what I think. I say it the way that I think it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yes.
get nothing fake from me. What you see is 100% real.
Yep.
It's the way I would talk if I had three friends sitting in my den and we're watching football together. And it's just the way that I think that if you're going to have a talk show these days, in my opinion, that's the way
Mhm.
that I think a talk show should be.
Yeah.
It's the way and so that's why, you joke about Gabe. I've had, I did a show right before your show, went on with a friend of mine, Eric Asher, and Doug Mouton, who comes on the show, is the sports director of WWL.
Yeah.
We were on together. And, I joke that he and I kind of go at it sometimes, but it's all fun. I mean, and the show's over and we all hug and we don't always get along the way it is with buddies.
Exactly.
You don't always agree. And so, that's who I am. What you see is I'm and that's how I've always been.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things I always admired about, like, I grew up outside of New Orleans. My parents were in Metairie and I grew up in Houston. So I would listen to, way back in the day, like Hap Glaude on AM radio.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and so I guess what I always appreciated about New Orleans sports radio and media like that was when you had the local, aspect of it. And I think that's great from what you've been able to do is you keep that up and you engage it, especially, I guess Hap covered a lot of things too. I mean, that was a long, long time ago when we were kids, I know, but I think it's a good tradition that you've got.
Well, interestingly enough about Hap, and you talk about Hap, and after Hap was Buddy Diliberto.
Yeah.
And they're both very similar and they were very opinionated and they said what they thought. And if they didn't like what you said, they let you know. They didn't mean any harm, personal harm,
Right.
but they, let you think. But that's what I grew up with. And the thing that I have in common with both of those guys is they both were newspaper men. They both began their careers as newspaper men. And that's really my mentality. And, I go back to 2015 and what I said earlier about starting a show, and they said, "You're going to do this show." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Because they fired the person that had been doing that show. And they say, "We think you have the personality. What this show has been lacking is personality." And I'm like, "Okay, because I have personality doesn't mean I can pull off a daily show." Like, "Well, we think you can. We're going to try it." And I'm like, "Great. If this doesn't work for me, I'm going to get fired." But, that's always been my background. And the way that I do this and the way that I do my show on a daily basis is, I have to write some things together. It's not a full script, but at the same time, with having a sports writer's mentality, you have to, go through everything. You start with your lead, you go through your middle, and you have your end. And that's just the way that I approach the show. And again, I get that, I think, from guys that I used to watch and listen to in the past, and Hap Glaude both, and Buddy D, both of those guys. Again, they were much better writers than they were speakers. And I think I feel the same way about my own self. It just so happens that no one has the patience to read anymore. So here we are. I'm giving my my story in oral version.
Yeah, and
Well,
you do that. I mean, that's your thing on your show. I mean, it's really what it's all about. And are you guys set normally to be an hour and it just naturally runs over, or is it, is this something that you just they just said do whatever you want to do, and if the show's yours?
It's funny. I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I have no guidance.
Okay.
So I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way. I mean that that's basically my way of saying, yeah, they do whatever you want.
Cool.
And so this started with me saying, I think this is going to be about a 45-minute show. And occasionally we would go over an hour here and there. And I think when we got on the video portion and when I started talking to people online, which started happening, I guess, in March, April, May, when this became my full-time gig and I put more of an effort of it to be a live show. It sort of, when I started talking to people online, I think that's when it became it. I mean, we never do a show now that's under an hour and 10.
Yeah.
There's no, that's the good thing about doing it the way that we do it and do it on YouTube. It could be an hour and 10. It can be an hour and a half. We've had shows that are an hour and 40. I think the record's like 2:10. I'm never going to do that. I can't. I really do shoot for going into my goal is to be in and out in an hour. It just never happens.
Yeah. One of the things that attracted me to your show was the fact that I just randomly appeared one day. I saw you showed up in my YouTube feed, and I tuned in, and I came onto the show. I just randomly typed some comment, and then you responded to it, and and that in and of itself is something that is kind of unique, because there's a lot of shows that are out there that they won't engage their audience during the show. They just you're really good, at least in my opinion, at looking down, reading the comment real quick, popping it up if it makes sense, or just scrolling past it if it doesn't make sense. You're really good at doing that. And there's a lot of people that'll, literally stop their show mid-sentence, look at the comment, process it, then decide whether or not to put it up. So there's moments of silence, and you don't really do that. You're pretty good at that.
Actually gotten myself in trouble a couple of times because I'll click on a comment without reading it fully beforehand. I'm like, oh wait, someone trying to sell their tickets. Oh, sorry about that. That's happened a couple of times. Look, I think one thing that we're missing with all this, and I told this to, was there's a show called Inside New Orleans around here. It's run by Eric Asher, who's pretty well known around the New Orleans area. And he is he's all over the map. Like, he covers everything. He's Saints, got Tulane, UNO, LSU, Pelicans, everything. And I kind of try to model myself on that, but it ends up being mostly Saints. But the one thing I told him this morning, and I think that we were talking about just what this area is lacking, and I don't know if they have it in other areas or not, but it's exactly what you talked about. And I think I realized that I struck a chord with someone. I guess maybe because I'm outspoken. Is I guess what
maybe
the next way to put it. But people started commenting in, and a lot of people vehemently disagreeing with me. And so I thought it was important for them to know that even though you disagree with me, I want you on the show. I want your voice.
Yeah.
And then it became a mix of both, and regulars. And for a while it was 8 or 10 or 12 regulars, and now we're probably up to, I don't know, 40 or 50 people that appear on a regular basis. Now I'm to the point now where I can't show every single comment, but I do think it's important, Jeremy, David, I think it's important that in this day and age, when you have the technology to be able to talk to someone, and even if they're just typing in a comment, when people feel like they're being heard, they want to come back. I don't just do it so they'll come back, but I think it's important that there aren't enough shows. Sometimes you don't want to call into a show and wait online for 10 minutes or whatever till they can fit you in. You get 45 seconds and you're done. I mean, this way you could type in a comment. You might get 4 comments shown on a show over the course of an hour and 20 minutes. And they're 20 minutes apart, but you're paying attention and you're being a part of the show. So I just thought that we did something that other people weren't doing, like you said. And I thought it was important to do. And, we hopefully we can take this to the next level. We'll see.
I think it's like almost bringing the shows we talked about before with Hap and Buddy D into the modern times, 21st century, because you've got that capability now to be visual and interactive. And I like the format when I looked at it the other day, with just because it's so fast paced and you're seeing everything going coming up there with the comments.
Well, and that's why you go back and listen to Don Dubuque. Now, Don Dubuque's been doing this for decades. So, yeah. I'm sure, I don't know what he was doing before text messages or whatever, but there's no reason not to. And I was trying to think of something. I'm already different. Okay. So I knew that the show had a chance to be a success. Again, when I first started this, this is the 4th season. So it's been over 3 years since we started. But I just kind of did it because I enjoy talking. I enjoy talking to people. And this was we couldn't talk to people when we first started doing it because it wasn't live. And so I was trying to be different. And even though I'm different, I didn't think it was different enough. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to do when they say, okay, this is going to be your full-time job, we're going to give this a shot, was that I want to get the people who watch the show, get them involved. And they have, and it's worked. And so, and I don't ever want to get too big to where, people aren't going to be able to, I don't have enough space to get them involved, or at least on a regular basis. But, I kind of just like being the local sports dude that people can vent to.
What I was going to ask is that with this new format, even though you've been doing the podcast for 4 years, after this became the full time, this is the first this is the first full football season you've been going through with that. So you're not exactly having two stellar teams. Well, I'm just wondering how long your shows would be if they were doing really well.
It's funny you asked that, but really our ratings are much better when they lose. Like I get to, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that we'll have almost twice as many viewers and readers and listeners or whatever you want to call them when the Saints lose, especially when it's a heartbreaking loss or if there's a reason to be super ticked off. You look at the Denver game is a perfect example. I mean, I think, and there you can go back to certain games that are like games you remember why you were mad. And I can tell you right now, some of the games that were the biggest for us is the Jacksonville game. And this should have won. It was on national TV, and we weren't doing Mono e Monday or anything like that. It wasn't all comments. It wasn't live, but the numbers for that show were incredible. So I mean, people actually. You say now they don't want to lose, and if you go 4-13, it's going to be hard to keep an audience. But you like it when they mix in some losses, it gives you more to talk about, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this season in particular, with LSU being what it is, and the Saints being who they are, I feel like a lot of people have just kind of said, well, LSU's going to be lucky to get a bowl game, let alone anything in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they've just kind of just said, let's just go to the tailgates and get wasted. At least that's
the interesting part of that is with the Saints being having kind of a resurgence under Darren Rizzi.
Yeah,
it's funny because now LSU fans who are also, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are Saints fans too. They've kind of said, okay, we don't have Dennis Allen to take it out on anymore. We're now going to take it from Brian Kelly.
Yes, so that's true.
Brian Kelly has become Dennis Allen, and Garrett Nussmeier has become Derek Carr.
Yes,
so that
is
probably won't last. And we probably haven't done enough with LSU on the show. But yeah, that's what I'm getting from people, and they don't like that I take up for Brian Kelly. That really ticks people off. So I'm not doing it because it ticks people off. But.
So David, you what did you say last weekend? That Brian, is there a portal for Brian Kelly to
transfer? Yeah, is there a transfer portal for Brian Kelly?
Yeah, something on Facebook. So here's one of your Brian Kelly. Well, I wouldn't call you a hater, but I think just more disgusting.
I'm the frustrated fan. Is what I'd probably be more like. I don't know, for some reason he just has never struck a chord with me, but. I mean, I was rewatching some stuff before we got on, and I forgot how thrilling the Ole Miss game was with it coming back and thinking, man, all right, they've turned it around and then everything is going to be, I misjudged the guy. And then the next 3 games, it was like.
I know people will call me Derry Downer at times because they don't like what I say when a team's doing well. And I'm saying, let's cool your jets a little bit. It's probably not as good as you think it is. Well, I'm the same way on the other end. Probably not as bad as you think it is when that's now Dennis Allen needed to go. So that's a whole different story. But, you just said something that I think struck a chord with me is like, I think he's better now. Brian Kelly had his first 3-game losing streak. And I get why LSU fans get fed up with him. I completely get it. I went to LSU too. I was in the band. It was LSU was kind of like they are now, okay. And at times and better at others, but it's just that's the problem I have with fans sometimes, and I let them know that I think let's judge a guy over the course of a year or 2 years even or 3 years. I get the frustration for Brian Kelly. I just think that again, bringing this team, this program out of the abyss and where they were going with Coach O is an interesting scenario. So it wasn't going to be pretty in my opinion had he stayed in.
Yeah. See, and the other thing is, I don't know if Jeremy mentioned, I live in Mobile.
Okay.
So I get I get a total for the last, what has it been, 15 years or so?
Yeah.
Nick Saban in Alabama, and usually I'm not the only one, but I'm maybe a handful of LSU fans where I work at the different chemical plants, and so. For so long, the entitled mentality of the Alabama fans, and I think sometimes the at least in my opinion, is, and not looking at it closely, other than just from when they make some of the decisions with head coaches. I think LSU seems to be chasing Saban in a sense. Because I mean, there were years when Les Miles was doing. I mean, they had a pretty phenomenal record. It was like 12-2 or something,
Yeah.
but they were still never as good as Saban. And
I agree wholeheartedly.
And I think, for any, going back to the 90s or something, man, schools would have killed to have some of those records. But it's just like they could never attain what Saban was able to bring to Alabama.
LSU would have killed to have that in the 90s because they were not very good.
Right. Right, exactly.
And, you bring up Les Miles, a perfect example. I thought Les Miles was a much better coach than anyone gave him credit. Now, he overstayed his welcome here because they were going to get rid of him, and then they decided not to. And I think at that point it was too late. You already basically told him you don't want him here anymore. But we get this backlash, and LSU did well, so we're going to keep him. And then they ended up keeping him another season, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
So Miles wore out as well. He stayed a little bit too long. But I always thought that he got a bum rap because you can't chase a Nick Saban, and people don't realize that Nick Saban and Brian Kelly, through the same length of time at LSU, had the same record. They have the same record after however many games they've coached, 38 or whatever it is. So again, people they want Nick Saban every time they go hire a coach, and there's only one of those. And it's like Alabama might feel as Kalen DeBoer is not Nick Saban, and they've got 3 losses, and people are going to get frustrated. If he has another year, if Kalen DeBoer has another year like they have this year, they're going to want him fired next year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's true.
Believe me, I know.
They're already talking about, people are, rioting, saying, we're gonna pull Saban out of retirement. He's coming back whether he likes it or not. And it's like, let the guy rest. I mean, he did really good for a very long time, so I think he's earned his retirement. And
I think the younger folks don't. I mean, obviously, we grew up with Bear Bryant when he was at the end of his career at Alabama, and then there was the dark years, I guess, other than Gene Stallings at Alabama. And I'm really not a big Alabama fan, other than just being immersed in knowing kind of the trek of it. And so when they started getting Saban and winning, it's like everybody who was born just before he took over and into their 20s now, they don't realize how, all the dark periods there were, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them just think that that's what Alabama's always supposed to do.
Yeah. So, and Ray Perkins, right?
Yeah. Ray Perkins. Yeah. He unfortunately was right after the Bear.
Yeah. So that's never going to work out, no matter, unless you just win them all, it's just not going to happen. So it just, it's just tough. It's tough. And especially when you play in the SEC, and now Georgia has taken that next step, and, you got Georgia and Alabama winning on a consistent basis. And LSU thinks that if you're not Georgia or Alabama, and you're not one of the top 5 teams in the nation every year, then it's not good enough. And to me, that's just not a realistic goal. I mean, it's fun. It would be great to do it, but it's not realistic.
Right. And I guess that's when I hate when the financials get involved, because whether or not Brian Kelly, hopefully he'll turn everything around. But, when you look at it, no matter whether it's Brian Kelly or some of the other coaches, and they get these deals, and then, I mean, how long are the schools or the donors or whoever going to have to keep paying for their, for decisions to try to be as good as Saban was or something?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious.
You keep giving these big deals, like you talk about. I mean, you get these giant deals, and you have to wonder at some point, I mean, is it worth taking a risk and saying, okay, we want this big name coach, and the only way we're going to get him is to give him a 10-year deal for whatever, $10 million a year. I'm making up a number, but are you going to do that? Or are you going to say, we're just not willing to take the risk, and you go the route of, I mean, look what Tulane's doing. I mean, John Summerall is going to be a rental coach. I mean, Tulane's going to be, up there, one of the top 2 or 3 non-Power 4 schools in the nation. And they're probably not going to make the playoff, but I mean, you look what he's done in taking this program over. They're going to be even better next year. And so he's probably going to be a 1 or a 2 year rental, and he'll move up. Or do you go try to find a young coach? I'm out of the ilk these days. I think I've changed my opinion, where I used to want to go get an established coach. like Brian Kelly. I think that now I'm more of, I'd rather take a risk, even for an LSU, even for a major. I'd rather go take a risk on someone that's up and coming, like a John Summerall. I'd use as an example. But why not take a risk? You don't have to invest nearly as much, and it's a lot easier to cut ties with them if it doesn't work. And you look at Florida. I mean, you know what they're doing, and so, and you know, they've given a vote of confidence to Billy Napier. Is it the right thing? Maybe not, but we've seen Florida get a little bit better. Maybe maybe they were about to go into a deep hole too, and he's having to pull them out. Maybe he wasn't ready for that, but see, to me, I just think that's the way to go these days. And again, it's a lot easier to get out of it if it doesn't work.
Yeah. Do you think with the whole transfer portal with the players, is that going to also make an effect into the effectiveness of these longtime established coaches? I mean, maybe that gives some support to what you're suggesting, to get somebody who, because they're not having to, you know, like I said, I think that's part of what, at least what I heard, that Saban was maybe having to try to coach in this new era, found it more difficult with the transfer portal and the what's the other thing with the sponsorships that they got? Yeah,
NIL. Yeah,
right. I'm wondering if you maybe are better off having somebody who's just starting and coming up from that aspect.
You led into my answer. I mean, that's exactly why Nick Saban left. I mean, he saw the writing on the wall, like, because young kids, they don't, it's not like before. And I hate to say this, but it really, they don't care that you're Nick Saban. When you start talking about money and where's the money, and look, Bryce Underwood just left LSU to go to Michigan he didn't leave because of Brian Kelly. He left because of $12 million. I mean, oh, you're going to give me, because they kept up and it started at 6, get to 8, go to 9, go to 10. And he kept saying no. He kept saying no. I'm not going to Michigan. I'm going to LSU. 12 million. Okay, with 12 million, I got to listen. So I guess that was his number. And look, Nick Saban just didn't want to play that game. And I think that's why I'm not even sure it's going to matter in the grand scheme. Don't get me wrong. You got to have a really good coach. I think you got to have a motivator. You got to add a motivator to get these kids in there, but especially the college ranks, you've got to work this transfer portal, at least for a team like LSU. And I think it would work the same for in Alabama. For LSU, I think what they need to do is, of course, they need to work the transfer portal, but they need to worry about getting the Louisiana kids to stay home. And that's where Brian Kelly has missed the last couple of years, because he thinks got that Notre Dame mentality. He thinks of Notre Dame. What do? They get the best kids in America. Well, that doesn't always work. Louisiana is different, and there's so much talent here in Louisiana. Don't let them go somewhere else. And then that's when, look, Coach O is not the greatest game coach on the planet. I'll just leave it at that. He always surrounded himself with excellent assistants, which is when he was good. When he didn't have excellent assistants, he wasn't. But one thing Coach O was great at was getting Louisiana kids to stay in Louisiana and go to LSU. And I think Brian Kelly needs to take that page out of Coach O's playbook. Look, real quick, I'll give you a story. You like stories behind the scenes. So in 2014 and 15, I think 16 as well. 13, is it 13, 14, 15, or 14, 15, 16? I don't remember. But Coach O's sons played football at Mandeville High School here, and I live on the North Shore. I live in Mandeville. And so I did not know Coach O at all, okay, when I first went out to cover Mandeville High School. And so I met him first. The son that was a quarterback was also a great tennis player. His sophomore year, he won the state championship in tennis. And so I just happened to get assigned to go to Monroe and cover the state tennis tournament, which was not the most of my career, but it was a job, whatever. So Coach O was there. He actually pulls me off to the side, introduces himself. We start talking. Well, I don't want to say we became friends, but we became regular. We would talk to each other. And so the next year when I went out to football practice, he would call me off to the side. Hey, Jimmy, come over here. I want to ask you about you know that Lawrence Keys kid over at McDonough 35? I'm like, yeah, McDonough, yeah. So I started wondering why, and he starts asking me about 8 or 10 different players, and players that Mandeville's not playing. They're not even in the same bracket. And then it dawned on me later, of course, when he got the defensive line coach job at LSU, he knew that one day, I think when he went there to be the defensive line coach, he knew he was going to eventually be the head coach at LSU. And so he was asking me about all these kids because when it was his time to recruit, he was going to be recruiting these kids. But that's who Coach O was. I mean, it was he kept the kids in Louisiana. That's who he went to first, and he wanted to be on a first name basis with these kids, and it worked for him. It certainly did. And so, again, that's not working for Brian Kelly because I don't think he's trying to do enough of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I heard those stories about Coach O when everything was going really well, and how they would bring up a lot of those stories and going, I don't know how many bowls of gumbo he went and ate at people's houses and stuff like that.
He's lost a lot of weight since he stopped coaching. So
I don't think I've seen any recent pictures of him.
Yeah, he's got a new wife now who's quite a bit younger than his former wife, and they like to go out on the beach, and so he is lost probably 30 pounds or so.
Oh, wow.
She lost 30 pounds, she'd have a rib sticking out. But
what kind of what I was going to also ask. So I've got two daughters, and they both were in the band here in Mobile. The first year my oldest daughter was in it, we actually went to the state championship. So we got to actually go to Tuscaloosa, and they played in Bryant Denny Stadium. And so the way that high school football players and high school football was treated or changed, it just seemed like it had elevated.
I don't know if it matters as much today as it mattered before, because there's so much. I mean, a lot of these kids can be into themselves, whether it be on social media or whatever. I mean, they get people to follow them on social media, and they're interacting with people on social media. That means as much to them probably as their local, whatever experiences they have. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think there probably is a correlation if you look at a lot of these schools that win on a regular, but not all of them. But if you look, there is a correlation between how good the band is or what the atmosphere is like compared to whether they win and what kind of players they get. So yeah, I could see that for sure.
I wanted to kind of circle back to the Saints, even though this podcast will be up for, as long as YouTube's around. Right. And probably people will be looking back on the season as awesome as it started. There was always you and I, well, we all grew up roughly the same time. So we remember the paper bags. We remember, all the different struggles that the Saints faced, and that, people didn't really get it why New Orleans celebrated the way it did for the Super Bowl, because we were always disregarded as a team, and rightly so. We stunk. We did stink. But with the way things have evolved since winning the Super Bowl within the organization, you being where you are, have you noticed a significant difference when you start a season like we did this year? 2-0, and in the fashion which we won, there was something about it that just didn't sit right with me. And I kind of, how do you go from where we were last season to all of a sudden coming out of the gate 2-0, and when's that shoe going to drop? And of course it did.
Yeah.
But the public persona, what the organization puts on, and the kinds of things that are said to the public versus what's discussed, your sense of the organization when they were going through that before DA was fired?
First of all, I think that he lost this team, Dennis Allen did.
Yeah.
And I've said this multiple times. I mean, but when they beat the heck out of Atlanta
and he apologized.
Yep. Hands off the football to Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams scores a touchdown instead of 41-17 or whatever, it's 48-17, and he goes out and he apologizes. Well, that's not how you handle that. And he had already, to me, kind of lost the locker room. I mean, first of all, if you're disobeying your coach, it's obviously you've lost the locker room.
Right.
Okay. So that's number one. But when you go and then you go apologize to, of all people, a head coach of the hated Atlanta Falcons, right, who was fired. You could go take a nap after the game, and by the time you woke up, he was fired. That's how quick he was fired.
Yep.
So to do that and embarrass yourself and this franchise, in my opinion, he lost the locker room. Now, somewhere in the middle of the offseason, I think they were able to get some of it back. But to me, Jeremy, they were always one bad break away from losing. You're going to lose them again. And I don't care if you start off 2-0, 4-0, or 6-0. This was going to happen regardless. Now, obviously, if you start 4-0, which is what the Saints probably could have, would have, should have, but you could say, I mean, Philadelphia game, they should have been 3-0. They went down. Carr led them to a potential game-winning score, and they couldn't hold on to Saquon Barkley still running down Poydras Street. And then the next week, you don't allow a defensive touchdown to Atlanta. You score again late, and somehow Younghoe Koo kicks a 57-yard field goal. So instead of being 4-0, you're 2-0. In the grand scheme of things, it may have been a good thing, because if you go 4-0, they're not going to fire Dennis Allen, right? I mean, well, you know, you're going to go through this thing and have to, but it would have happened eventually because the players didn't respect him. It was clear and obvious. But that's on management's fault that they let it go to this. They let it go to this season. I don't know what made them think that they could put a Band-Aid on it and it was going to be fine. So we are sitting in the middle of the season, and Darren Rizzi has brought life back to this team. And I think if you want to be a realist, the biggest fear that I have is the fan part of me, and not the podcast host part of me, and not the newspaper man part of me who's supposed to be objective. But the fan part of me is the thing that I'm most scared about is that this team does some really silly things and become attached to people. And if Rizzi he's already won 2 games, and if he wins like 3 or 4 more, that they latch onto him and they say, this is your savior. And then they bring him back, because the fans will be in his corner. If they win like 5, you know, if they finish 8-9 or whatever, and he leads them to an 8-9 record after they went 2-7, the fans are going to be in his corner. And to me, it's the biggest mistake. Nothing against Darren Rizzi. I mean, he may be a phenomenal special teams coach, and he's a great motivator. But to think that you can do something that no one else has done this century, and that's turn an interim coach into a successful head coach, it hasn't happened this century. Not once. You can go look it up. It has not happened once in this entire century that an interim coach has turned out to be a successful coach. We're seeing it with Antonio Daniels right now in Las Vegas. It just doesn't work. So if you want to go backwards, then we're going to be in the same place, I think, next year if Rizzi comes back. So to answer your original question, the long-winded version is, I think these players are hanging by a thread right now. I think they're still in the same boat to where one little thing could break this team apart, which is why, to me, you need to get rid of the players that are making it hang on a thread. If they're not going to like stand behind, and I'm no Dennis Allen fan, but if you're going to jump ship, I don't care what coach you jump ship on, it's not professional. And it never happened to Sean Payton. And that's why the Saints never had a lot of really bad seasons under Sean Payton, because he just commanded respect and they never jumped ship. He never would have those kind of players here. So they've got a lot of work.
It was a running back that he caused all kind of problems. He yelled at Peyton.
Latavius. No, not Latavius Murray.
No, probably come to my mind.
Adrian Peters.
Adrian Peters. AP. Yep, that's right. That's right. You know, and that was it. I mean, he was not having none of that. It was like, you're gone. See ya. I don't care what your credentials are.
So he was. I mean, that's why, you know, there are he's not the only one that has done this. There were several wide receivers who were sent off packing and had a lot of talent and played for other teams. And a guy that's hurt for the Cowboys right now, I'm having a brain for Brandon Cooks. Same
Brandon
thing.
Cooks.
He got in Peyton's doghouse and was an excellent player. Don't care if you're an excellent player. You don't fit into the mold of what a New Orleans Saint is. And to me, I think you need to go back to that. I mean, I'm not the biggest Sean Payton fan on the planet, but that's one thing that I absolutely admired about him and still do, is you're going to fit the mold of his player or you're not going to be here.
Well, he installed a system that lived on for over a decade. You know, and that's he's how many head coaches can you point to for the Saints organization that did what he did?
2. Ian and Jamor. That's it.
Yeah. I was going to say that when you talk about latching on, I kind of felt like prior to the Jim Mora era, there was a lot of that type of thing New Orleans Saints fans would find, you know, if they went before Mora, what was it? Did they even go 8-8? 8-8 was like the best.
Yeah.
and I can even remember because I was living in Houston, and when they hired Bum Phillips and then Kenny Stabler and then Earl Campbell, who
Oh,
had
yeah.
all been great at Houston, and then coming over, and it's kind of like, oh man, this is going to be the heyday for the Saints, and it's like these other guys are all kind of past their prime, put it nicely.
Well, they traded a bum. I'll never forgive him for this. God rest his soul, but traded Archie Manning for Deion Gray to the Oilers and brought in Kenny Stabler, as you said. And I just think that if Archie Manning would have still been here for the teams that they had, that Archie Manning would have got his winning season in a playoff appearance had they not done that.
Yeah, I agree.
But
do you feel that it was right to do what they did? As far as, I mean, let's say that Rizzi's not the head coach next year. There was some guy that I've been reading about I think he's like
Aaron Glenn is the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I think it's him. Yeah, I think that
he coached with Sean. He coached under Sean Payton, so he's also part of the Payton tree.
Right. So, but I mean, in what I've seen on your show is that you're kind of the mindset that you want somebody in here who's never been part of the organization to come in.
I said again earlier today on another show, I said, look, I just think that this team needs a reboot. I'm not saying that all 52 players need to go, but I think that a big majority of them need to go, and they need to clean house inside that building, in my opinion. And I think the next head coach for the New Orleans Saints, unless it's a guy like Mike Vrabel, I think he needs to be under the age of 45. I think he needs to be never been a coach, no more retreads. And the next thing, it needs to be somebody that can motivate a team and is high spirited and knows how to get young coordinators to come with him that are going to be good. And I also think, to your point of what I've been saying, is I think he has to have never played for the New Orleans Saints before, never coached for the New Orleans Saints before. In fact, he doesn't even have anything black and gold in his closet. So he's never even worn a black and gold shirt or warm-up pants in his life. That's how much I think the Saints need to get away from what they've had. And so I just think they need a fresh start. More than they need a fresh start more than they've needed since 2005. And they got one with Sean Payton and completely changed things around here. And I think, to me, you need to press the reboot button. You can love Sean Payton all you want, but they need to cut every single tie to Sean Payton that they've ever had. It needs to go out of except for maybe Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara. Other than those two, got to start over. And so, and that includes a coach. I don't want anyone from the Sean Payton coaching tree. I just don't. I think that's what this team needs, and I think they need a fresh start.
Isn't that kind of what the examples you used? I mean, well, the only two real examples. I mean, Jim Mora and Payton didn't have any of those previous attachments to the Saints.
Yeah, and Jim Mora was on my show. I guess it's been 2 years now, but he was a fantastic guest. But he talked about how one of the things that intrigued him to come to New Orleans is, I mean, he'd only even been to New Orleans once or twice, I think. He didn't know anyone inside the organization. No one knew him. He had 2 other job offers at the time, and the reason why he chose New Orleans is because, well, he had a general manager in Jim Finks at the time that he was going to let him do his thing and not get involved in what he was trying to do. And B, he wanted to be able to lead a team that had such a rough past to have brighter days, and he was the first one to do that. And so he'll always be remembered, in my opinion, as the one that was first to be able to do that. Yeah, that's something that Jim Mora and Sean Payton absolutely have in common. And again, I think if they go back to that, they can be successful, maybe in less time than if they just keep trying to be status quo and keeping people. And I use this term, and Jeremy knows I use this term all the time, kicking the can. You keep kicking the can. The can's just going to get dented. Aluminum doesn't break. Okay, it just gets dented up, and you'll just keep kicking it until you decide not to kick it anymore, and you're not going to get any new results. And I think to get new results, you just got to start over.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, I think it's valid given what we've seen so far. I mean, I agree with you, though. My fear is that if Rizzi, comes but let's say he comes with the remaining games, what equates to a winning record. Yes, people will latch on to him. And if he wins out,
and then he'll keep the same coaches that he's got right now. That's even the worst part. I mean, he may make a couple of changes here or there, but for the most part, he's probably going to keep the same coaching staff. This is Dennis Allen's coaching staff.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another bad thing about keeping an interim coach.
Yeah. I did want to ask you though, like in the off season, you don't have the Datitude podcast. So what are you doing?
No, we do.
You do.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So
we're 12 months out of the year now. I do take a break after the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Actually, I'm a big Mardi Gras guy, and so I need to take vacation like everybody else. So I usually take 2 weeks around Mardi Gras, and we'll go dark for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But then when we come back, it's just we cut it from 4 days a week to 3 days a week. But we do, and we talk LSU baseball. We talk Pelicans, although the Pelicans stink this year, so I don't know how much.
Not much to talk about.
Exactly. So, but we will talk LSU baseball. We will talk a lot of Saints still. Look, you could talk about Saints 12 months a year. I mean, really. So, I mean, you'll start talking about the draft at the end of March. We also will get into college basketball. I'll probably spend more time talking about. I do spend some time talking about national things at times. What the story of the day is at different times. So, yeah, it's a 12-month a year show, except when we take our little breaks here and there.
Yeah.
You got high school tennis you can always fall back on too.
High school tennis. I'm an expert. I'm an expert now on high school tennis for sure.
Well, so you said you're rolling in Endymion, right?
I do. Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. So you're in Endymion, and this has been something you've been doing a while for Mardi Gras?
I've been in Mardi Gras since I was old enough to ride. In fact, when I was 16, you're supposed to be 18 to ride, but my dad was in Endymion, so when I was 16 he got me in, and so I rode with him for 3 years, and then later on I became a longtime member of the crew of Toth, which if you're not from New Orleans, it's the big Sunday day parade before the crew of Bacchus, which is later that night. It's one of the biggest parades in Carnival. So my wife and I actually got married on a Mardi Gras float.
Oh wow!
Really?
Yeah. So that's how Mardi Gras is big with me. So I got back in Endymion, I think 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been back in that ever since. But yeah, Mardi Gras is a big deal for me. So it's always perfect. Usually, not always. It's usually perfectly timed that it's right after the Super Bowl. So and this year it's actually in March. So I will take 2 weeks off probably around then. But it's a perfect time to take, and then I'll take probably 2 weeks off in the summer, but other than that, we're rolling. We have shows all the time, except for those 4 weeks of the year.
Well, David and I will be in town. Yeah, we're gonna
We'll have to go spend time. We'll go get a po' boy together.
That
sounds good.
Look, that Bears in Covington. I'm down with them. They're pretty good.
They are good, and there's a place also that need to open your eyes to called Mandeville Seafood that's up here.
Yeah.
Been there.
It's phenomenal. And look, I'm biased because the owner became a friend because they were so damn good. But he's also one of my sponsors for play-by-play. But I'm telling you, you got to go there. That's a place up here, and then a little place called Triple Nickel. But there are North Shore. There's some secrets up here in the North Shore.
Oh yeah. Then we ended up at Mandeville Seafood, and I think everybody enjoyed it.
It's a treasure up here, and I'm not joking. There are probably 4 or 5 places that are similar. And to me, that's my favorite. But there are 4 or 5 places that you could do. I mean, if you were in that business and you wanted to, like, say, we're doing little hidden gems, you could find a bunch of gems up here.
Oh yeah,
I bet.
I had one question. I know Jeremy trying to kind of finish. You mentioned something about Jim likes the pumpkin spice lattes or pumpkin spice flavors.
Yeah, I finished this cup. This cup's done.
You found some still.
They actually they brought it back about 4 or 5 days ago. The pumpkin spice is back at the local racetrack. I'll give them a plug. Race down the street. And so you make your own coffee. It's way cheaper than Starbucks, and it's way better, but they have their own, their own creamers or whatever to do. I don't know, vanilla or whatever. And so they have pumpkin spice. But they got rid of it for like 3 weeks, and I was bummed. But it's back, So I'm ready to get back. Tomorrow we're back. We've had a few days off of the show. We're
Yeah.
back on the show tomorrow morning, and I'm excited about it. And I'll have my pumpkin spice ready for 11 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask. Go ahead.
I gave Jim some shit about something. I forget what it was, and he's like, "Do you have stock in pumpkin spice?" Or he called me, because I go by Rainy Cajun when I'm commenting on his show.
Yeah,
and it was just kind of funny because telling you, man, those pretzels, those pumpkin spice pretzels.
Oh yeah, I called them cookies. They're pretzels. I gotta find them.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, it's only Trader Joe's as far as I know. So
Okay, well, we have a Trader Joe's. We have one. I think we have one up here on the North Shore now. I know there's one in Metairie. So,
yeah.
I was going to ask your thoughts about the seasonal now that they're back. If you like the sweet potato U-Big pies compared to the others, because it's kind of like a pumpkin spice.
I like anything sweet potato. I mean,
Okay.
So yes, the answer is yes. I try to stay. I know you wouldn't notice by my girlish figure here, but I try to stay away from the U-Bigs. I was upset when they had the fire, but they're back, and so I had to have one when they first came back. But I try to stay away from that. And this week, people have, for some reason, the past week, people keep offering me all these different desserts, and I'm trying to save every calorie I have for
Thursday
given day because my wife is an Italian. She used to own her own restaurant. Now she sells food for a living, but I want to be able to eat everything that we have in this house.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't work that way, but I'm trying to save up every single calorie I have. So I've only been eating like one meal a day the last 3 or 4 days.
Oh, wow.
Oh man.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, nuts. Yeah, I'm just as guilty. I'm trying to cut back, but now that they've had Rouse's in Mobile for 10 years now, and we're finally getting. They just started getting the fresh U-Bigs, and I mean I've tried them many years ago, but now I'm trying to get my kids to at least have an experience with them. So I'll go check. I'll look at the box, and I was like, oh man, I've never tried that. So we've tried. I think all the ones they've had available, and like I said, when I had it before, sweet potato to me was one of the better ones.
As we speak, my mother-in-law is out there. She's spending the week with us. She is out there making desserts galore, including she just made 2 pecan pies. I know she's making an apple pie and just make a couple other things. I can't even walk in there. So it's a good thing I actually have an assignment this evening, so I won't be here to smell it anymore.
Yeah.
Are you driving to the South Shore for your next gig?
Oh, my game is in Covington, so I got to drive north about a half an hour. So
okay.
So,
all right.
I already went on the South Shore. The show that I did earlier.
Yeah,
I was coming from the South Shore before I came and did this show. It's busy day.
Yeah,
and you did it in 40 minutes. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's I don't live actually his studio is literally 2 blocks off the Causeway.
Oh wow, okay.
I only live about 7 minutes from the Causeway, so it's not a bad drive.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. I'm glad you agreed to do it.
Thank you very much.
I mean, it was just kind of on a whim. I said, you know what, I'm just going to reach out to this guy. He seems like a personable fella, and I figured, we giving each other shit about our high schools. I thought, okay, we got something there. So.
I'll do anything for a Jesuit guy. I have Jesuit friends that trying to. They don't like to own me in public, but they don't tell them.
No, we're good. I'm over all the losses to Shaw when I was at Jesuit. I'm just over it. I've got far worse things to worry about now at this point in my life.
Well,
so.
your team has won a state championship since mine, and I actually have. The last thing I'll go out on, I'm doing play-by-play for Shaw, right? As a matter of fact, for Shaw football, and they're playing in the quarterfinals this week. They're the top seed, and they have the best chance that they've had in a really long time to go to the Dome and win this thing. So we'll see if they can get the second state championship this year.
Well, good luck to them on that.
Thank you. We'll see how it goes.
All right,
Jim. Well, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We will see you on the interwebs. I'll be there tomorrow morning razzing you about something. So
I can't wait to give you grief.
All right.
All right. Nice meeting you, Jim.
Nice meeting you.
Take care.
All right.
There he